Now let's start by modifying our third-person character to use this custom Skeletronix component. And we need to make sure that we are showing plugin content. Dock these together. Add component. Search Skeletronix. We've added a Skeletronix component. Target mesh. We will need to set in our construction script. And then we want to call generate skeleton. If you want, this returns the number of bones created. So let's go back to the viewport, compile, and change the profile to mannequin profile. Recompile, and we can't see much of anything because we need to make a transparent material for our mannequin. So let's do one real quick. Let's make it some type of green. And there you go. We can now see that we've successfully added a skeleton to the mannequin. The Skeletronix component handles the custom positioning of all the segments of the spine as well as the scapula. Long bones such as humerus, radius ulna, femur, tibia, these are scaled in proportion to the distance between the two joints. Other bones such as the skull, the rib cage, the pelvis have a entry in the Skeletronix profile for you to set the scale. So let's take a look at the Skeletronix profile we used. As you can see, we have lists for skulls, rib cages, pelvises, spines, hands, metacarpals, feet, phalanges, long bones, and scapula. So, for example, a scapula entry contains the name of the bone it should attach to, the mesh, the index of the rib cage it should be looking at for its animation, and the name of the socket on the rib cage mesh it should point at. Long bone entries have the bone that they attach to and the bone that they end at. This is the length of the mesh at a scale of 1, or 100%, which is used in the calculation to scale the mesh appropriately. If you check Use Custom Girth Scale, the length of the mesh will be scaled based on the length of the distance between the joints, but it will use a custom scale for the other two axes. Metacarpals form part of the hand and attach to the wrist mesh. They have a socket name on the hand and then the bone that they end at, which is the first bone of the fingers. And then they scale themselves similarly to the way long bones work. Spines are probably the most complicated. So in this spine, we're using 4 different types of meshes. We're using 5 lumbar meshes, 12 thoracic, 6 cervical, and then 1 special atlas vertebra. These are essentially placed upon a spline component that's generated using sockets in the skull, ribcage, and pelvis, and then they are positioned and rotated along that spline in accordance with how the rest of the bones are animated. Let's bring the camera in for a closer look. Everything looks good to me. Let's make a copy of this blueprint and switch to the female player mesh from the female player animus pack. Let's consolidate the skeletons first. Let's use star 2. Looks good, except in a few places. Because this mesh has the joints at the very bottom of the foot instead of in the middle of the toes, we need to add a socket. Let's call this one toe R. And we can call this one toe L. And we can raise these, let's say, negative 1.5. And 1.5. So let's switch the profile we were using to the female profile I made earlier. The joints are also too far back, so let's move them forward. There we go. In this profile, the rib cage is set up to be slightly narrower. The skull is also slightly smaller. Because most elements in the profile support using a socket name instead of strictly bone names, it can be easy to make adjustments like this. The Skeletronix profiles are also widely customizable, so they should be able to fit even creature characters that don't have human anatomy at all. Because you set the meshes in the profile, you could also import your own meshes to use instead of the ones that are included. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.